Well, let's go into ozone, what it is. I
Okay.
mean, most people who think of ozone think of the ozone layer and sort of the holes in the ozone. And just explain to the
Okay.
audience out there what ozone is.
So basically, ozone is oxygen. Oxygen is a molecule that doesn't have enough electrons. Because it doesn't have enough electrons, it can't exist in nature. It's not evenly balanced. So what it does is one oxygen atom comes up to another oxygen atom. The two get together and they share electrons. This is called O2. This is the oxygen as it exists in the atmosphere, because that's a relatively stable molecule. Where they're sharing the electrons, it's relatively balanced. If you were to split that molecule apart into O1, it can't last. It doesn't have enough electrons, so it'll immediately combine back into O2. But if you take O2, which is basically the oxygen that patients get in the hospitals, the oxygen in the tanks, the one we're all used to, you take that and run it through a box that shoots a charge into that box. What's going to happen is the charge is going to break the O2 molecules up into O1s, but I just told you that the O1s can't exist, so they're immediately going to go back to O2. But here's the interesting thing. About 2 to 3% of those O1s will go back into O3. That will be where you have 3 oxygen atoms sharing the amount of electrons that make 2 oxygen atoms stable. So it's not a stable molecule. And that's ozone. Ozone is basically 3 oxygen atoms instead of 2. It's an unstable molecule. It doesn't have enough electrons. As soon as you introduce it into any biological specimen, and by the way, that's one of the more beautiful things about ozone, is the applicability of it is just astounding. Any place you put it, whether you put it into an ear, you put it into an intestine, you put it into a joint, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's going to immediately go into that area, and it needs an electron. It's going to grab an electron and start the movement of electrons. It's the movement of electrons in the human body that heals the human body. It's how God designed our bodies, so that this movement of electrons is what creates the healing, and in essence, actually what creates health. To a certain degree, we get that from O2. O2 is just enough to move those electrons. So all that oxygen we breathe in is going to move electrons. But ozone is sort of like oxygen on steroids. It's going to move the electrons much faster, much more immediately, and you're going to get much more immediate results than you'd ever get with just oxygen by itself. So it's pure oxygen. It's not pollution. It's not contaminant. It's absolutely a pure source of oxygen.
So when that O3 comes, you're talking about the electron transport chain. It improves the movement of electrons, improves that type of tunneling or electron tunneling. It improves the hydrogen back into the cell and produces more ATP. Is that what you're saying? Is that what it does?
Absolutely. In one way or another, it's going to cause those electrons to move around, and it's the movement of electrons that keeps us alive. As soon as my body stops moving electrons, I'm moving on. There's nothing here for me. It's the movement of electrons, and ozone, more than any other molecule, stimulates that. And by the way, listeners need to understand that the reason we get sick as we get older instead of as we're young, now I know there's unusual circumstances where people have genetic issues and such, but normally you don't get sick till you get older. The reason is because as we get older, the movement of electrons slows down. And ultimately, it gets so slow that basically you die. So we want to, keep those electrons moving in a very youthful way. And ozone is instrumental at that.